Number 15. The red imported fire ant. Around 1933, a cargo ship from South America arrived at the port of Mobile, Alabama, carrying soil ballast that no dock worker inspected. Inside that soil was Solenopsis invicta, a species of ant that within 70 years would colonize more than 300 million acres of the American South, killing native insect populations wherever it settled. Charles Kennedy, an entomologist at Auburn University, documented the first major infestation in 1957. What makes the fire ant unusual among ants is that it does not just bite. The mandibles anchor the ant to your skin, and then the abdomen curls forward and injects venom through a stinger positioned like a wasp. The venom is roughly 95% solenopsin, an alkaloid unrelated to any protein-based venom in the bee and wasp families. Because it is not protein-based, most people do not develop a true allergic response. What they develop instead is a sterile pustule, a small white blister filled with dead tissue that appears within 4 hours at every sting site and persists for up to 10 days. And fire ants do not sting once. When you disturb a mound, hundreds of workers climb your leg in silence, wait for a chemical signal from the queen's pheromone chain, and then sting in perfect synchrony. A single encounter can leave 300 pustules distributed from your ankle to your knee. In 1998, the American College of Allergy documented at least 80 deaths in the United States from fire ant anaphylaxis, most in patients over the age of 65, who could not escape a mound quickly enough. What makes the fire ant particularly unsettling isn't the pain of the individual sting, which Schmidt rated at 1.2, comparable to walking across a shag carpet and touching a light switch. It is the coordination. 600 insects deciding, at the same instant, to hurt you. Your leg is now covered in blisters that will not fully heal for weeks. But this is only the warm-up. Number 14. The yellow jacket. Vespula vulgaris, the common European yellow jacket, and Vespula pennsylvanica, the western yellow jacket. Together kill more Americans each year than every venomous snake on the continent combined. The Centers for Disease Control recorded an average of 62 annual deaths from Hymenoptera stings between 1999 and 2017, and yellow jackets accounted for a plurality of those. What separates yellow jackets from bees is disposable weaponry. A honeybee stings once and dies because the barbed stinger tears free from her abdomen. A yellow jacket has a smooth stinger and can inject venom repeatedly without injury to herself. The venom itself contains a mixture of phospholipase A1, hyaluronidase, and antigen 5, all of which are aggressively recognized by the human immune system. If you have been stung before, your body has already produced immunoglobulin E antibodies targeted at these proteins. On the second exposure, your mast cells release histamine within seconds, your airway swells, your blood pressure drops. This is the anaphylactic cascade, and it can kill an unprepared adult in under 15 minutes. But that is only the allergic risk. The immediate physical experience of a yellow jacket sting is a burning, throbbing pain that Schmidt rated at 2.0, and any single yellow jacket can deliver 10 of them if you swat at her without killing her cleanly. Ground-nesting yellow jackets are also territorial in a way that bees are not. If you step on their burrow, the entire colony emerges as a pursuing swarm that will chase you for up to 200 feet. So on our timeline, after the fire ants, the yellow jackets arrive. Your face is now swollen. Your pulse is climbing. The next thing that lands on you looks like a small piece of orange velvet, and it is not an ant, but you would be forgiven for thinking so. Number 13. The velvet ant. The cow killer. Dasyamutila klugi, despite the name, is not an ant at all. It is a wingless female wasp with a fur coat, a fluorescent orange warning color, and a stinger that is nearly half the length of her body. Justin Schmidt encountered her in the desert of Arizona in the late 1970s and later rated her sting at 3.0 on the pain index, describing it as, quote, explosive and long, like a running hairdryer just dropped into your bubble bath, but the bathtub is on fire. The name cow killer is folk taxonomy, not zoology, but the reason it stuck is instructive. Ranchers in the American Southeast reported that when their cattle stepped on nests of these wasps, the animals would bellow, stagger, and refuse to move for hours. The venom does not kill a cow. It just hurts enough to look like it might. The chemistry involves a peptide called dasimutillin, which triggers pain receptors in a way that lasts an average of 30 minutes and can extend to a full hour. There is no allergic component to worry about with velvet ants because most people never encounter enough of them to develop sensitization. What you get is the raw, unmodulated pain response. Every nerve in the area transmits fire signals to your brain at maximum rate for the full duration. The velvet ant also carries the longest sting relative to body size of any hymenopteran on Earth. Roughly half the length of the animal itself is delivery hardware. Female dasimutilla are also armored in a way that makes them nearly impossible to crush underfoot. The exoskeleton is roughly 11 times denser than that of a honeybee, and researchers at Case Western Reserve University, led by Gary Dougherty, measured that a fully grown cow killer can withstand compressive forces equivalent to being run over by a passenger car and still walk away. This means that once a velvet ant is on your skin, brushing it off is not a reliable strategy. Imagine that your body has just endured the fire ants and yellow jackets. Now your leg contracts as if the muscles are being pulled through a strainer. You cannot form words. Your vision narrows. This is only the third of 15, and already the pain is at a level most people will experience once in a lifetime, if at all. But the next one on the list does not deliver its damage through pain. It delivers it through disguise. Number 12. The puss caterpillar, Megalopyge opercularis. If you live in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, or anywhere south of the 35th parallel, this is the insect most likely to send you to the emergency room without you ever knowing what touched you. The larva of the southern flannel moth looks like a small tuft of tan or gray fur. Children reach out to pet it. What they touch is not fur. Beneath the soft outer hairs is a dense array of hollow spines, each one connected to a venom gland in the caterpillar's body wall. On contact, the spines break off in your skin and deliver their contents through capillary action. Robert Cook and colleagues at the University of Texas Medical Branch published a review in 2010 showing that the venom contains at least 3 distinct toxins that produce 3 distinct effects. The first is immediate burning pain that radiates up the entire limb within minutes. The second is a gridwork of small hemorrhages that appear on the skin, forming a pattern that matches the shape of the caterpillar itself. The third is systemic. Nausea, headache, muscle spasms, and in severe cases, drops in blood pressure that require hospitalization. A 3-year-old girl in Katy, Texas, was admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit in 2017 after touching a puss caterpillar on a playground railing. She recovered. The insect that had inflicted the damage was smaller than a quarter. The event that put Megalopyge on the modern medical map, however, came in 1923, when an outbreak of puss caterpillars in the pecan groves of San Antonio, Texas, hospitalized more than 2,000 children and adults over the course of a single autumn. Public school officials in Bexar County closed several campuses for weeks because playgrounds and tree canopies were dense with the animals. Physicians at the Baylor College of Medicine, treating the wave of pediatric admissions, described patients presenting with radiating limb pain, patchy hemorrhages tracing the exact shape of the caterpillar on the affected skin, and, in the most severe cases, dropping blood pressure that required transfusion. What makes the puss caterpillar particularly haunting is the parental horror of it. The child does not scream because they were attacked. They scream because something soft turned into fire in their hand. There is no visible attacker. There is no warning. And then the next caterpillar in this cascade shows you exactly what a warning looks like. Number 11. The saddleback caterpillar, Acharius demilia. Where the puss caterpillar hides its danger under soft fur, the saddleback advertises with the confidence of an insect that has never had to hide. It is bright green, marked with a brown saddle on its back that resembles a horse blanket, ringed with fleshy horns tipped in barbed spines. Every entomology field guide from Roger Peterson forward has painted the same warning. If you see it, do not touch it. The venom of the saddleback contains hemolytic proteins, meaning proteins that rupture red blood cells on contact. Combined with histamine-releasing compounds, the sting produces a burning pain equivalent to a jellyfish sting, followed by rapid swelling, and, in a subset of patients, a small area of skin necrosis, where the tissue actually dies and sloughs off over the following week. Douglas Ferguson, formerly of the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, cataloged the moth species Acharia stimulia in a 1971 monograph on the Limicodidae family, noting that human envenomations were reported as far north as Massachusetts. The saddleback is also a slow mover, which paradoxically makes it more dangerous than a faster species would be. Because it does not flee, gardeners and hikers pruning back foliage in late summer routinely place a bare hand directly on the animal without seeing it first. A 2019 review by the Poison Control Center in Atlanta, Georgia, cataloged over 300 confirmed saddleback stings across the American Southeast in a single calendar year, with roughly 1 in 15 requiring hospital-level treatment for secondary infection or systemic reaction. Once envenomated, most patients describe an initial 10-minute window of near-normal function, followed by an aggressive escalation of pain, followed by the burning sensation migrating along the arm or leg toward the nearest lymph node, where it settles and throbs for hours. So on our timeline, your leg now bears the fire ant blisters, the yellow jacket welts, the cow killer's throbbing, the puss caterpillar's grid of small hemorrhages, and now a section of skin where the cells are dying at a slow, methodical rate. You are still conscious, you are still able to walk. That is going to change with the next arrival, because it is not the pain that defines the 10th insect on this list. It is the disease it carries, and that disease will not become visible for another 20 years. Number 10. The kissing bug. Triatoma infestans and its cousins in the subfamily Triatominae feed on blood, and they get their nickname from the location where they feed, the area around the human mouth. During the night, while you sleep, a kissing bug lands on your face, pierces the thin skin near your lips or eyelids, and drinks blood for up to 20 minutes. The bite itself is nearly painless. The bug's saliva contains an anesthetic that ensures you do not wake. What kills you is not the bite, it is what the bug does immediately after. Kissing bugs defecate while they feed. In that fecal matter is Trypanosoma cruzi, a single-celled parasite discovered in 1909 by the Brazilian physician Carlos Chagas at the Oswaldo Cruz Institute in Rio de Janeiro. When you unconsciously scratch the itch left by the bite, you rub the parasite into the puncture wound. From there, Trypanosoma cruzi enters your bloodstream and colonizes your heart muscle. In the acute phase, most people notice nothing. Perhaps a mild fever, a swollen eyelid, a rash. Then the parasite goes quiet for 10 to 30 years, while it slowly damages the electrical conduction pathways of your heart. Roughly 30% of infected patients eventually develop Chagas cardiomyopathy, a progressive heart failure that can only be treated with a pacemaker or a full transplant. The World Health Organization estimates that between 6 and 7 million people are currently living with Chagas disease, and around 12,000 die from it each year, primarily in Latin America. What makes the kissing bug particularly unsettling isn't the bite itself, which you never feel. It is the 20-year delay between the encounter and the collapse. Somewhere in your chest, decades from now, the parasite will have finished its work. But that is a slow horror. The next insect in the cascade brings the fast kind. Number 9. The jack jumper ant, Myrmecia palacela. Native to the island of Tasmania and parts of southeastern Australia, the jack jumper is a black and yellow bull ant with the ability to leap several centimeters at a target when threatened. Its sting delivers a venom cocktail that Schmidt did not rate on his index because he never traveled to Tasmania, but that Australian entomologist Simon Brown and colleagues at the Royal Hobart Hospital documented in a landmark 2003 study in the Medical Journal of Australia. Between 1980 and 2099, 4 people died in Tasmania alone from jack jumper stings, all from anaphylactic shock. In a state with a population of 500,000, 4 deaths from a single ant species over 20 years is a mortality rate that exceeds every venomous snake in the region combined. The chemistry that makes jack jumper venom so lethal is unusual. Roughly 7% of Tasmanians develop allergic sensitization after a single sting, compared to about 1 to 2% for European honeybee venom. The proteins in Myrmecia venom, particularly palacillin 1 and palacillin 3, are unusually potent immunogens. Once sensitized, the next sting triggers systemic anaphylaxis within 3 to 15 minutes. Your throat closes, your blood pressure crashes. Without an adrenaline injection, you die on the ground with the ant still nearby. Every regional clinic on the island now stocks jackjumper antivenom for immunotherapy. So on our timeline, this is where your body starts asking whether it can continue. Your immune system, already primed by the earlier stings, now recognizes a familiar chemical family. Your face is swelling from the inside. Your throat is tightening. If this were the real world, you would need an epinephrine injection right now. Since it is a thought experiment, you continue. The next visitor is not an ant, but it does not need to be. It only needs to contact skin. If you are finding this deep dive worth your time, hit subscribe. Every week we publish another one of these, another look at the parts of nature that biology textbooks summarize in a sentence, and that reality expands into a nightmare. Now, back to the cascade. Number 8. The blister beetle. There are more than 7,500 species in the family Meloidae, and every one of them carries the same compound in its hemolymph, cantharidin. This is not a peptide venom delivered by a stinger. It is a chemical defense, a defensive irritant so caustic that when the beetle is crushed against your skin, the compound leaks into the surface layers of your dermis and produces a chemical burn. The burn appears within 2 to 5 hours as a large, fluid-filled blister, sometimes as wide as a coin, and it heals over the course of 1 to 2 weeks. Cantharidin has a history far older than modern chemistry. In the 2nd century, the Roman physician Galen recorded the use of dried Spanish fly beetles, Litta vesicatoria, as a therapeutic blistering agent for the treatment of everything from arthritis to lethargy. In the medieval period, it was misidentified as an aphrodisiac and administered in doses that killed at least several dozen documented users, including, according to the historical record, at least one bishop of Verona. The Marquis de Sade himself was tried in 1772 on charges that included the poisoning of several sex workers in Marseille after administering cantharidin-laced pastilles, a case documented at length by the historian Maurice Levert in his 1993 biography. In the American Civil War, cantharidin was one of the compounds American military physicians used as a counter-irritant plaster on the chests of soldiers with respiratory infections. The doses were small, but soldiers who ingested contaminated water from ponds where blister beetles had drowned reported severe abdominal pain, blistering inside the mouth and esophagus, and, in enough cases to be recorded in the surgical journals of the Union Army Medical Department, hematuria that persisted for days. The compound is toxic in doses as low as 10 milligrams. If ingested, it destroys the lining of the urinary tract, causing severe pain, hematuria, and, in unlucky cases, renal failure. On our timeline, the blister beetle brushes against your forearm as you try to walk away from the anthill. You do not feel it. 4 hours later, a raised blister the size of a marble appears on your wrist. Then another. Then 5 more. What makes the blister beetle particularly haunting is how quiet it is. There was no attack. The insect was passive. Its defense was chemical, and you triggered it by simple contact. Some of the worst envenomations in nature come from creatures that are not hunting you at all. Now the swarm arrives. Number 7. The Africanized honeybee. In 1956, the Brazilian geneticist Warwick Kerr, working at the Universidade Federal do Paraná, imported queens of the East African honeybee, Apis mellifera scutellata, in the hope of breeding a subspecies better adapted to tropical climates than the European honeybee already established in South America. In 1957, 26 of those queens escaped from Kerr's experimental apiary in Rio Claro. Within 30 years, their hybrid descendants had colonized every country in South America, moved north through Central America, crossed into Texas in 1990, and by 2012 had reached as far as Utah and California. The Africanized honeybee is genetically almost indistinguishable from the European honeybee. What differs is behavior. Where a European colony sends around 10 guard bees to investigate a disturbance, an Africanized colony can dispatch several thousand. Where a European bee pursues a threat for around 100 feet, an Africanized bee will chase you for up to a quarter mile. The venom itself is identical to that of a regular honeybee. Melittin, phospholipase A2, apimin. The medically significant number is not the potency, it is the count. A healthy adult, can survive up to 10 stings per pound of body weight. For a 150-pound person, that is roughly 1,500 stings. Africanized swarms have been documented delivering over 10,000 stings in a single attack. Between 1990 and 2020, at least 28 confirmed deaths from Africanized honeybee attacks were recorded in the United States, with hundreds more in Mexico and Brazil. Every death shared the same profile. The victim disturbed the colony, sometimes unintentionally. The swarm pursued, and the person could not reach shelter fast enough. On our timeline, your body is now covered. The swelling has migrated from your legs into your neck. Every previous entry on this list has scaled up the local damage. This one scales up the volume. What makes the Africanized honeybee particularly disturbing isn't the venom, which most healthy people can survive in modest doses. It is the fact that a single mistake, one closed toolshed door, and any of us could join that list of 28, and the next entry doubles down on the theme of a single sting that kills. Number 6. The northern giant hornet, Vespa mandarinia. In Japan, where it is native, this insect is called the great sparrow bee because it can grow to a wingspan of nearly 3 inches. Between 20 and 50 people die from its sting every year in Japan alone, according to figures compiled by the Japanese Ministry of Health. The venom contains a peptide called toxin that damages nerve tissue directly, an amino acid solution that produces immediate systemic pain, and a cocktail of enzymes including phospholipase A1 and hyaluronidase that break down the walls of surrounding cells. This is where the description shifts from painful to necrotic. The tissue at the sting site does not just swell, it liquefies. The Japanese entomologist Masato Ono of Tamagawa University published a series of studies in the 1990s documenting the chemical composition of the venom, and later work by the World Health Organization in the 2000s classified Vespa mandarinia stings as capable of causing acute renal failure due to the direct toxicity of the venom components on kidney tissue. Coyote Peterson, the American Nature documentary host who allowed himself to be stung by an Asian giant hornet on camera in 2018, described the pain as, quote, molten metal running through your veins, and afterward showed the necrotic wound persisting on his arm for over 3 weeks. In 2019, the northern giant hornet was detected for the first time in the state of Washington. The United States Department of Agriculture launched a coordinated eradication response. By 2022, they announced provisional eradication of the established nests. Whether that holds is another question. On our timeline, one hornet reaches you, and the sting punches through your shirt as if the fabric were tissue paper. The area around the sting darkens within an hour. What makes the giant hornet particularly haunting isn't the venom on its own. It is the possibility that its arrival in North America may be permanent, and that this timeline may become a real one for people who have never encountered it before. But this is only number 6. The next 4 are where the pain readings on Schmidt's scale hit the ceiling. Number 5. The warrior wasp, Sinoeca septentrionalis. Native to Central and South America, the warrior wasp is a social insect that builds large hanging nests in the rainforests of Panama, Costa Rica, and northern South America. What sets it apart is a coordinated defense display. When a nest is disturbed, the workers on the surface begin to drum their bodies against the paper of the nest in unison, producing an audible rhythm that has been recorded at over 80 decibels. The drumming is the warning. The wasps that follow are the response. Justin Schmidt, over the course of 40 years of self-experimentation, was stung by the warrior wasp at least twice. He rated the pain at 4.0 on his index, tied with the tarantula hawk and the bullet ant for the highest score. His written description was, quote, torture. You are chained in the flow of an active volcano. Why did I start this list? The chemistry that produces this level of pain is not fully understood. The venom contains a mixture of peptides, kinins, and neurotransmitter analogs that trigger the nociceptors, the pain-sensing nerve endings, to fire at maximum rate for up to 2 hours without pause. There is no lasting tissue damage. There is no allergic component that most patients need to worry about. There is only the pain, sustained at a level that most human nervous systems will never be asked to produce. On our timeline, this is where you would lie down, not because you chose to, Because your legs stopped listening. The warrior wasp does not kill you. It just teaches you that the human brain has a ceiling it can visit, and that ceiling is a hostile place. What makes the warrior wasp particularly unsettling isn't the sting itself. It is the drumming that precedes it. You know what is coming, and you cannot outrun it. There is one insect on this list with venom just as painful. It appears next. Number 4. The tarantula hawk, Pepsis grossa. 2 inches long, with iridescent blue-black bodies and bright orange wings that flash a warning to every vertebrate predator in the desert. The tarantula hawk is a wasp that hunts tarantulas. The female locates a tarantula burrow, provokes the spider into a defensive posture, then delivers a paralytic sting to the underside of its abdomen, targeting the central nervous system. The spider does not die, it becomes immobile. The wasp then drags the paralyzed tarantula back to a prepared chamber, lays a single egg on its abdomen, and seals the chamber. When the larva hatches, it feeds on the still-living spider from the inside out, saving the vital organs for last, so that the food source stays fresh for as long as possible. When a human is stung, the venom does something different. It does not paralyze. It floods. Schmidt rated the sting at 4.0 and described it as, quote, blinding, fierce, shockingly electric. A running hairdryer has just been dropped in your bubble bath. Unlike the warrior wasp, the pain does not last 2 hours. It lasts about 5 minutes. Schmidt's recommendation for anyone stung by a tarantula hawk was, in his words, to lie down and scream. There is nothing else to do. In the deserts of Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas, entomologists at the University of Arizona have documented that most tarantula hawk stings occur when a person, walking through desert scrub in summer, unknowingly steps between a female wasp and her chosen burrow. The female interprets the shadow as a threat and rises to intercept. The wasp's sting is nearly a 1/4 inch long, and it can penetrate leather gloves. On our timeline, the tarantula hawk reaches you next. For 5 minutes, every other pain on this list falls silent, because your nervous system cannot process anything else. You would not remember what you were doing before. You would not remember the fire ants, the yellow jackets, the cow killer, the caterpillars. There is only the current signal, and it is white. What makes the tarantula hawk particularly disturbing isn't the pain itself. It is the fact that the wasp had no reason to sting you. She wanted the spider. You were in the way. The next arrival is more deliberate. Number 3. The Asian needle ant, Brachyponera chinensis. This is the entry that most people watching this video will have never heard of, and it is the one entomologists in the American South are most worried about right now. Native to Japan, China, and Korea, the Asian needle ant was first documented in the United States in 1932 in the state of Georgia. For decades, it went unnoticed. It nested under logs, under stones, in forest litter, and rarely encountered humans. Beginning around 2010, entomologists including Eleanor Spicer Rice, then at North Carolina State University, began to document a change. The species was expanding aggressively into suburban habitats, displacing native ant populations, and critically encountering people. The Asian needle ant sting is not particularly painful compared to the fire ant. Schmidt did not rate it because he never worked with the species extensively. What makes it dangerous is its venom composition. The proteins in Brachyponera chinensis venom trigger unusually high rates of allergic sensitization in the human immune system. Once sensitized, subsequent stings can produce anaphylaxis at a rate that some researchers estimate exceeds that of European honeybees. A 2015 study by researchers at North Carolina State documented cases of severe systemic reactions across at least 7 American states, and by 2024, the species had been confirmed in at least 18 states across the southeastern United States. The particular danger of the Asian needle ant is its silence. It does not swarm the way fire ants do. It does not make its nest obvious. It just sits in the leaf litter, waits, and when disturbed, delivers a single sting to a person who may not have known there was an ant colony under their bare foot. On our timeline, The Asian needle ant reaches you at exactly the moment your immune system has been primed by every previous entry. The systemic reaction begins within minutes. Your blood pressure enters its second dangerous drop of the evening. What makes the Asian needle ant particularly haunting is that it may be the most important insect on this list for a reason nobody has explained on a large channel yet. It is spreading. And the danger will scale with its geographic range. But now we get to the entry that no thought experiment prepares you for. Number 2 arrives in your bloodstream through nothing more than a fingertip brushing a tree branch. Number 2. The Lonomia caterpillar, Lonomia obliqua. In 1989, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul in southern Brazil, a physician named Renato Duarte Camargo began recording an unusual pattern of patient admissions to the Hospital Universitario in Passo Fundo. Adults were arriving with severe internal bleeding, gum hemorrhaging, blood in the urine, and, in the worst cases, intracerebral hemorrhage. None of them had any history of clotting disorders. None had ingested anticoagulant medication. What every single patient did share was recent contact with a green and brown caterpillar that lived on the tree trunks near their homes. By 1992, cases had reached epidemic proportions. Researchers at the Instituto Butantan in São Paulo, one of the oldest and most respected venom research institutions in the Southern Hemisphere, identified the culprit as the larva of the giant silkworm moth, Lonomia obliqua. The venom, delivered through hollow spines when a person leans against a tree trunk on which a colony is resting, triggers a full-body cascade called disseminated intravascular coagulation. In simple terms, the venom causes your blood to attempt to clot everywhere at once, which consumes all of your available clotting factors and then leaves you unable to clot at all when the internal microhemorrhages begin. The result is a hemorrhagic collapse that can kill within days. Before Instituto Butantan developed a specific antivenom in 1995, mortality from Lonomia envenomation peaked at around 20% of hospitalized cases. Since the introduction of anti-Lonomic serum, mortality has fallen below 2%, but Brazilian public health surveillance still records between 200 and 3,500 envenomations every year, with the number rising as deforestation pushes the caterpillars into new human contact zones. On our timeline, Lonomia arrives, and your body's clotting system, which the previous 14 entries have already stressed, now begins to fail entirely. Bruises appear on your torso for no reason, your gums start to bleed. The margin between survival and death depends on how close you are to a hospital that stocks the antivenom and how quickly you can reach it. Only one hospital chain in North America as of 2024 keeps anti-Lonomic serum on hand, and it is imported directly from São Paulo. What makes the Lonomia caterpillar particularly haunting isn't the venom, it is the fact that its spread is driven by us. Every hectare of southern Brazilian forest we clear pushes another Lonomia colony onto the walls of a house that was not there 10 years ago. But this is only the second entry. There is one more, and the person who spent his life ranking these calls it the worst. Number 1. The bullet ant, Paraponera clavata. Native to the lowland rainforests of Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, and Guyana, the bullet ant is one of the largest ant species on Earth. Workers reach over 1 inch in length. The species is monotypic in its own subfamily, Paraponeranae, meaning that the evolutionary line leading to the bullet ant has been evolving in isolation from all other ants for over 100 million years. The venom is unlike anything else in the Formicidae family. Its primary active compound is a peptide called Ponera toxin, a paralyzing neurotoxin that binds to voltage-gated sodium channels in mammalian nerve tissue and holds them in a partially open configuration. In practical terms, this means the pain-sensing nerves in the area of the sting cannot stop firing. They cannot repolarize. They send the pain signal to the brain continuously, without interruption, for up to 24 hours. Justin Schmidt, in the final revised edition of his pain index published in 2016, rated the bullet ant sting at 4.0+. It is the only entry in the entire 83 species catalog to receive a rating above 4. Schmidt described the sensation as, quote, pure, intense, brilliant pain, like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch nail embedded in your heel. He noted that the pain typically peaks at 12 hours after the sting, not at the moment of the sting itself, and can persist for a full day. The bullet ant is used ritually by the Satere Mawe people of the Brazilian Amazon in a coming-of-age ceremony documented extensively by anthropologists at the Federal University of Amazonas. Boys undergoing initiation wear woven gloves lined with bullet ants for a duration of 10 minutes at a time and must complete the ritual 20 separate times over the course of their adolescence. Anthropologist Christopher Starr, who observed the ceremony in the 1980s, reported that participants sometimes lost muscular control for days afterward, and that the ritual is considered by the community to be the passage from boyhood into manhood, precisely because it demands the endurance of a pain that the human nervous system was never designed to accept. On our timeline, this is the final visitor. The bullet ant reaches you. Your body, which has now endured 14 previous envenomations across a single evening, receives a single sting from one small worker ant walking across the toe of your boot. For the next 24 hours, toxin holds your sodium channels open, and you feel exactly what Justin Schmidt described, not the sum of the previous 14 entries. A separate, incomparable, isolated signal that overrides everything else. This is the sting that Schmidt said made him question why he had begun cataloging insects in the first place. And it is the reason this list ends here. There is no number 0. The bullet ant is the ceiling. What makes the bullet ant particularly haunting isn't the pain, which does eventually fade and does eventually let you sleep. It is the specificity of what evolution produced. Somewhere in the last 100 million years, a lineage of ants developed a peptide that so precisely targets the mammalian nervous system that it can hold the pain signal open for a full rotation of the Earth. That peptide was not designed for us. We are just what it happens to work on. So this was the thought experiment. 15 envenomations, 15 chemistries, one hypothetical evening, and a body that would not be walking out of it. What every insect on this list shares is that its venom was not evolved to hurt you. Most of these species have never encountered a human being. Their weapons were shaped by predators the size of an anteater, a coati, a jaguar, or, in the case of the Lenomia caterpillar, by nothing more complicated than a hungry bird. What we experience when they use those weapons on us is what a lineage of prey animals developed to defend itself, applied to the wrong species entirely. Justin Schmidt died in February of 2023 at the age of 75, after a career during which he was stung by more than 150 different insect species, most of them intentionally, all for the purpose of understanding what venom is actually for. In an interview with the entomologist Jessica Ware of the American Museum of Natural History in 2021, Schmidt was asked whether he regretted any of his self-experimentations. He said no. He said the only thing he regretted was that so much of the world still assumed that pain was proof of malice, when in fact it was almost always the opposite. Pain in the insect world, he argued, is what evolution produced when a small animal needed a way to survive against a larger one, and the fact that it happens to work on us is one of the small accidents of a very old planet. His last book, The Sting of the Wild, published in 2016, is the reason we can rank any of this at all. Everything else is a footnote to his work. If you take one thing from tonight's video, take this. There is no insect on this list that hates you. There is no insect that even knows you exist. The pain you would experience is nothing but the accidental collision of your species with theirs, in a place, at a moment, that was not planned by either of you. If this deep dive was worth your time, subscribe to the channel. Every week we cover another thing biology textbooks summarize in a sentence, and that reality expands into a full evening. The next video looks at what would happen if every venomous marine animal in the ocean stung you at the same time, and one of the entries is worse than anything on tonight's list. See you there.